Thanks, everybody, for showing up. I think we've got a great session for you. So on the wealth part, there's a lot of wealth. According to Cerulli estimates, $105 trillion are going to be transferred in the next 20 years. 46 trillion going to millennials, 44 trillion to Gen X, and 15 trillion to Gen Z. Baby boomers, not surprisingly, have about half of U.S. assets, and 73% of U.S. wealth is held by people over 55 years old. So, the wealth is there, but is it really being transferred? Our friend Josh Brown, a co-creator of Future Proof, posted just very recently, about a week or so ago, that the phrase great wealth transfer is financial porn for advisors. And I quote, "Great wealth transfer is porn for financial advisors. Wealthy boomers aren't selling their stocks. They're borrowing against them to buy second homes and condos. They're living longer than their parents. By the time they're leaving assets to their millennial children, those millennial children will be in their 50s. Build a practice that speaks to all generations and services that are based on where people are today." So, with that in mind, Family Wealth Report did a little survey of millennials, college-educated millennials in their 30s. So a bit of a subgroup of millennials, but I think the most, certainly have the most numbers and the most money. And we found that only 4 out of 10 millennials said they have received an inheritance or wealth transfer that had any impact on their lives so far. So with that in mind, we're going to focus on actionable strategies for multi-generational planning, best practices for engaging next-gen clients, and meeting their unique needs. So as far as strategies go, we also talk to RIAs around the country. And Willow Creek Wealth in Northern California had some very interesting strategies in terms of multi-generational planning. They do an annual review of their client roster, and they want to find out, are we engaging enough with children of clients? They try to include children in meetings or have parallel relationships with those children, and they try to provide basic financial planning services for the younger clients. They want to build trust and connection, and they want to move data from the families and children into their CRM to gauge levels of engagement. Now we have a great panel here, and I'd like to start with Kathy, who's had experience both as a lawyer and in wealth management with multi-generational planning. She's been especially really on top of estate planning, which is a big part of this. And Kathy, could you tell us what you found and what you think is the best way to do these kind of strategies?
Absolutely. Thanks, Charles. So in my career as an estate planner, prior to joining Wealth.com, I had the opportunity to work with ultra high net worth and high net worth families, talking to them about what matters to them in transitioning wealth, right? Because when Charles was mentioning the advisory firm that they had interviewed, they talked about annual meetings, building relationships with the family, right? Those are, it doesn't matter if you're on the attorney side or the advisor side. Those are the pieces that matter. What do people care the most about? Their families, their friends, their relationships. And so when you can strengthen those, you are able to have a better connection with your client. How do you do that? Like actionable strategies, right? I think that piece of convincing, and sometimes it takes convincing your clients to sit down with their adult children and actually have open and clear communication. And a lot of people don't want to do that. a lot of the generation that the baby boomer generation that we think about this great wealth transfer and what's happening, Charles mentioned, they're not selling their stocks, right? They're buying second homes. And so you as an advisor who have seen these things happen before have a really good connection to help them strengthen their relationship by convincing them to have those conversations. And it's doable and it matters.
Trudy, what have you found?
Yeah, so I'm with Bassett, and we're doing something very different in that we're offering a flat fee subscription-based price, comprehensive financial planning solution to the mass affluent. So 50 to 70 million American households that haven't really been serviced with this level of quality. And what we see, our average age of a member, we call them members, not clients, they're about 45 years old, so squarely in the Gen X and millennial space. And I think the number one thing we hear is that the AUM model is not something that they're enamored with. So we find that the flat fee, fully transparent, objective model is a model that the younger generations prefer. I think they're way savvier about money. If you think about Zennials and Millennials, they're having conversations about money. They're turning to social media and a whole variety of new channels to learn about money and their finances. And so we go direct to consumer. We've seen significant growth over we've been around since 2016. And what we find is a lot of our members are saying, I don't want to go to my parents' financial advisor. I'm looking for a modern solution that helps me with my needs, which are unique. It's a different world than it was 20, 30 years ago. And their overall asset level is much different. They're not sitting at 60 years old with a lot of assets looking at a high net worth solution. They're looking for a very different solution. They're in the prime of their life. And the decisions they have to make, the choices they need help with are pretty different.
Are you beginning to see any referrals, or is your average client age a bit too young to refer to either probably not children, but maybe siblings or friends who might be younger, or coworkers? Are you seeing any of that in the multi-generational sense?
Definitely. We don't see it as much in the multi-generational sense. If we're talking to some of our members that are sitting in their late 50s with older children, we see it. But average, again, is 45. And I think the referrals are much more around friends and family members that might be siblings, cousins, friends,
right.
Other people that that they feel would benefit from the service. So referrals are definitely a part of the business, but it takes a slightly different shape.
Gotcha. Kathy, anything else that you found to be helpful in terms of working with one generation and sort of passing on, transferring to another?
One huge piece of working with the next generation is that you need to meet them where they're at. And Shruti mentioned that they are not engaging in content the same way that the boomer generation did, right? So they're finding resources outside of, they're using resources like social media. In fact, they get so much information from social media, you probably have to re-educate on some of the things that they've heard. And so integrating more technology, more easy buttons, more app-related, platform-related items. That's actually why I joined Wealth.com, because I knew that was where the estate planning world was going. It was going to be moving into a technology-driven space, and that's because it's driven there by who? The consumers and our clients. Yeah,
that's a great segue, to talk about the best practices for engaging them, which includes, of course, client acquisition. So, in the Family Wealth Report survey that we did for millennials, 30s, professionals, but again, that's probably a target audience. This is probably not good news for the for the advisors out there, but only 1 out of 10 millennial surveys worked with an independent advisor.
That seems like great news. There's so much opportunity.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. The glass is half full. So, what did they say they wanted? And, to your point, I think, especially in terms of technology, they want ease of accessing information, ease of navigating websites and apps, and low fees, which I think will make you feel good. So when we surveyed some of the advisors, there's a firm in Nashville called Vestia, and their target audience, their clientele, is women physicians. That is their niche. And they have found that when they're prospecting, as much video as possible is what their target market is looking for. They say they get a much higher response rate using YouTube, Instagram, 90-second reels on Facebook, LinkedIn, BombBomb. That's what they're suggesting. Another firm in Ohio, Boyer Financial Group, also video, music, and art. And they stress authenticity, entertainment, being relatable, and educational. And they say that you don't need a special marketing budget or influencers. The availability of free digital editing tools gives you a wide range, and you can do a lot. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ways, especially Shruti, because you guys are pretty virtual, correct? Almost all virtual?
So our business is a virtual business,
Yeah.
and the service we deliver is fully virtual as well.
Right. So what are some of the ways that you guys are reaching out in terms of social media? Let's start there.
Yeah, so just to take a step back, if you think a little bit about the millennials and the Gen Xers, they just have, you said this earlier as well, completely different content consumption habits. And they have different needs. So if you think about it, a lot of our members are in the prime of their life. If they have kids in the home, which is a pretty good chunk, their hair is literally on fire. So there isn't really time to research, time to read, time to go to an appointment or play a round of golf. They're kind of wanting to get advice on demand. And so when it comes to how we've designed our service, it's very much focused on making things efficient and using technology because, like, just out of curiosity, how many of you would rather get on a phone call for customer service versus a chat? I'm just curious. Who would rather get on a phone call or go to a store? Okay, and who would rather chat? Okay, so again, I don't know the average age of this audience, but I'm kind of going to ballpark that it's in the sweet spot. And I think you see that there's a little bit of a mix, but there was a heavier number of hands that went up for chat. I think the concept of advice when you need it, through messaging, through applications, real-time chat, things of that nature are much more in demand. Obviously, you talked about a flat fee, but also the types of topics people want help with. Like estate planning is incredibly interesting to our audience. They don't know if they need one. They don't know what it is. Insurance is
But
obviously...
people have told them they might need one. They should look into it.
Exactly. We tell all of our members that they should be protected with an estate plan. And then they're obviously really interested in they're less about wealth accumulation. So this category historically has been, I have wealth, then I get help. This is a part of the market that is in the midst of their career. They're still accumulating wealth and assets. And so for them, it's not just about assets. It's also the younger generation mindset is, what do I want to do with this money? So money is a tool to live the life they want. And so that ends up becoming a very core part of the service. And so when it comes to marketing, not only are you reaching people in different places, but the types of things you're building content around are also very different. So we have a full suite of marketing channels. We're using influencers, we're using Meta, Facebook, Instagram, we're using Google Search, we're using now AI in terms of, the engines are actually where a lot of consumers are shifting to for information. So you want to be relevant when it comes to showing up in AI search results. We're also using a variety of affiliate partners in lifestyle publications, and about 70% of the wealth transfer, speaking about the original content topic, is supposed to go to women, interestingly, in the next 5 years. So women are a really big audience for us. And so I think the entire way we approach the mix is very much direct to consumer. And then the other thing we do that I know a lot of the other RIAs don't do as much is nurture leads. So it's about edutainment or educating an audience, nurturing them through as they get from why do I need financial planning to why should I actually get it now. And that takes a little bit of time and energy and resourcing to actually have that conversation, be there as a trusted advisor through their educational journey, and then to actually get them to convert. So it's a very different set of channels that we use to attract members. And I can't share our cost of acquisition, but I know this, the category in our cost of acquisition is actually quite low for the average revenue that a member pays with us relative to a lot of the industry.
Right. Kathy?
Well, from my perspective, one of the pieces that I know that Facet offers and is able to really give to clients in a way that is accessible to them is estate planning. And why is that? You are in your late 30s, 40s, early 50s, and you know what everyone's telling you? You need an estate plan. We were talking earlier about the easy button. There's no easy button for that. You're trying to find a lawyer. You're trying to figure this out, and so what happens? You don't get one. You don't get one until someone says, you haven't designated a guardian for your kids. I mean, if you haven't done that, you could have a problem, right? And so by giving them something that they need, when at a time when it seems impossible to get it, your hair's on fire, and you have no time for anything else, will, I think, that advertising dollar go a lot farther, that reach out, that kind of hint of, look at all these things that we can do for you, that goes beyond what maybe you think of as stock picking.
What are some of the channels that Wealth.com is using to reach this audience? Are they using much, digital, social media?
So we are actually direct to business.
Okay.
So we're going to advisors. So the way we're doing it is giving the tool to the advisor,
right,
and then the advisor gets to choose how they use it in their practice.
Okay. So B2B.
Yep.
Okay. Shruti, I'm curious how you're using influencers. Could you tell us a little bit about how that works? Do you pay them? What's the relationship?
Yeah, so we do use influencers, and first and foremost, we really have done a lot of work to understand what our financial planning philosophy is. I think that's really important in servicing an audience at scale, especially with a fixed fee. And so number one is there's quite a vetting process in terms of finding influencers that share our personal set of values and our beliefs around financial planning. So if you think about it, there's just a lot of bad advice out there, especially when you've got Gen Xers and millennials going to social media. There are a lot of people that are not qualified, don't have a CFP, are hobbyists, and then they start talking about their perspectives on money. And so for us, it's very important, the selection process of finding a partner that fully aligns with our belief system, and then, starting a relationship with them, getting them to understand our service, what's unique about it, providing access to pieces of the service so that they can really speak about it. And then we go through a process that sometimes is paid, sometimes it's not. Sometimes, it can be an ambassador program, somebody that's very much a believer and they're a member of ours and like the service, and then we have a different arrangement, which might be success-based. But yes, so we do paid programs with sponsors. There's a lot of regulation around it, and we are obviously compliant. That's a huge piece of this. You can really go sideways. I think the testimonial rule went into effect about 4 years ago, where you could use testimonials in advertising.
Right.
And so we were one of the first to jump on it pretty, intensely. And so everything is disclaimed that this is a sponsored post or this is a partner, a paid partner. But we've had a lot of success with it, and I think it's been great to develop content with some of our partners and let them speak on behalf of what makes our model compelling. But when you think about why influencers work well, it's because of the fact that influencers are experts, are authoritative voices, and in this world, an ad doesn't go as far as somebody that you trust.
Relatable?
That's relatable, that tells you, you've already built trust with them, right? So these influencers have audiences. These audiences trust them for advice and for recommendations. They're following them. So when an influencer shares, hey, this is a great company, and this is why, it's that much more powerful than, for example, Facet running an ad and just saying, this is amazing.
Right, we're so great.
Yeah, I mean, that works too, but it's different. Consumers are really skeptical. I mean, they've just gotten so smart. over the last 10 to 15 years. There's so much more transparency. There's so much more word of mouth that I think they're turning to trusted,
Right, and I think
authoritative voices. Yeah.
I think they can see through some of the hype.
Yes.
And, people have also talked about content as being able to create community. Again, which isn't so hypey. It's like, oh, we can share this information. It's helpful. They're not just trying to sell something. Have you found that to be the case? And has that worked for you?
100%, yes. I think we consider our membership a facet community of people. And I think we think about extending that community into others. And whether it's an influencer community or a publisher community, for example, how many of you know Morning Brew? You guys check that out? Yeah. So the Morning Brew community is pretty loyal. And we've done work with them in the past in terms of partnerships where we think about getting into their community. So I think the concept of community marketing in general is definitely relevant. I think it's here to stay. And I actually think in the next 5 years, it's those micro communities that become even more important, because even the influencers I think people are now even skeptical about influencers, right? Who's paying them, and a lot of that model is up.
Right.
So I think the more micro you get, the better.
Right. More authentic.
More authentic, yeah.
Yeah.
Authenticity is a heavily overused word in the arena of marketing these days, but it is
And can be
100%
inauthentic.
true. Yes, but it's almost table stakes, right? Like,
Right.
you've got to just be transparent and authentic, and I think the younger generations really value it, and I think that's why the flat fee, transparent model, where we don't have commissions, our CFPs don't sell, we have a separate sales team. These are parts of our service that are highly valued by these audiences for the same reasons.
Yeah. So a couple of things, and Kathy, maybe you're aware of some of these from sort of a legacy point of view to engage next-gen clients. It's old school, but free planning sessions seems to be sort of tried and true. And also providing 401k services. Has that worked for, either of you? Are you familiar with those, marketing strategies, and what do you think of them?
Free is always a good idea to at least consider, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
But how does it really work? Like, what is your stickiness when you do offer something for no charge? Are you able to convert that? And then how much more reason do they have to come back to you? So when I think about strategies like free consultations, right? I think it depends on what market you're going after and what are you offering? What does that free consultation actually get you? Mm-hmm. Is it something actionable that the client feels good about?
Right.
And can then say, I learned something about here, and I'm going to take that back with me, and now my life is a little bit better, and that's going to percolate in my head until I go and use that resource that gave me that education. So I do think it can be valuable, but it needs to be very well thought out. People always want free lawyer time as well, and so I'm definitely someone who doesn't who wouldn't just give that away. I understand the value of it needing to have a purpose in your business, because that's the only thing a lawyer has, literally, is time. And so when you're in that area, you become very cognizant of what it looks like to give something away for free.
Yeah. What do you guys think of that?
The last we did research.
Do you do any of it?
Yeah. So I'll answer that with a stat. So the last we checked, about 80% of our members had not worked with a financial planner before. And so in unlocking this audience, where I think your research said 1 out of 10.
1 out of 10.
I think the key is to demystify the service. And I think there are multiple ways to do that, because a lot of people don't know what financial planning is. They think it's the same as investing.
Right.
And it's really not, right?
No.
Especially if you're doing legitimate, holistic financial planning. It involves all of these aspects of your life. You're covering things like estate planning and protection around insurance and topics around investing. And so we have not yet, I'm not saying we never would, we're always testing things, but we haven't done anything outright where the service is free. What we've really spent our energy on is demystifying the service by way of educating, content, helping people to understand what is the experience like, what can you expect. Yes, the service is going to more than pay for itself. And what can you anticipate experiencing? How are you going to feel? So we've leaned more into demystification in other ways. But I think that if you can land a really great freemium product that give people a taste, especially if you're going to an audience that has never experienced it, then of course it's powerful. The key is obviously to be able to translate that into a paid service so that you can keep your cost of acquisition within reason. But I think that 401k, once you're a member for us, we will handle your 401k investments, and even if they're not held with us, which is pretty unique for our model, but we'll even tell you how to allocate if you have an active 401k with an employer. So,
Do you guys have a minimum?
no, we don't charge on investing.
Just for the fee, the monthly fee?
It's just a subscription annual fee.
Okay. Kathy, I'm just curious, do you think that it makes sense for, the RAs that you're working with in terms of the younger generation? Sometimes they probably wouldn't meet the firm's minimum. That's a big issue, but they're considered to
when
be
you say
prospective,
one in
clients
10,
in the future.
right? 1 in 10 don't have it, or only 1 in 10 do have a financial advisor in this certain range. Then the question to me is, what are those barriers to access? And a big barrier to access, I think, has been the perceived cost. And so by putting that up front, you're making it a lot easier. And it's no different than in the estate planning world, because if it's clear what it's going to cost for you to get to your estate plan, it will be easier for you to get it done. And you will feel like, you know what, let me budget for this. Let me put that money into it. Let me set it aside. And so I think that this model is going to become, and not just in the financial advisory space, but in a lot of spaces, is going to become more and more prevalent. And the industries and the businesses that get out front will be in the lead.
Yeah. In terms of the unique needs of these clients, or prospective clients, in the survey that we did, this is interesting. Again, millennials, 30s, professional, college educated, most concerned about having money for retirement. I was a little surprised they mentioned that already, but makes sense, obviously. House was a big one, being able to buy a house and to pay the mortgage, of course, or even to be able to rent something that they want. Travel was very prominent, and children's education. Vestia, the firm in Nashville, their clientele of young professionals, because of the rising cost of housing and childcare, they found that they were very concerned about cash flow planning. And that's something that they help them with. And the firm in Ohio, Boyer Financial Group, they found that their clients, the next-gen clients, very concerned about housing, student loan debts, and they found that millennials and Gen Z in particular, one of their big needs was speed. They want answers fast. So that was a biggie for them. And the other was risk. They found that this cohort was more attracted to crypto, trading on Robinhood, than the older clients, and that they felt it was really important to set realistic expectations. So I'm wondering if you guys can, talk about that a little bit, in terms of, like, let's say risk. At Facet, how do you try to hold back if they want to buy a lot of crypto, or how do you guys approach that?
Well, risk is obviously a huge part of what we understand early in the relationship. We have a pretty well-defined philosophy around financial planning, and a huge part of our role is to teach and to educate our members on what's the best path for them based on their goals and their risk tolerance. So this is, the definition of personalized planning, right?
Right.
And so I think it is a lot. It is very much about providing advice and guidance and understanding what they want to accomplish, and we work around it. And so if a member really wants to put some into crypto based on their ambitions and goals, we can help make that happen. We're not going to do that for them because of our belief system, but we'll set it up in a way where, as long as some of the other goals they have around longer term planning are tackled, okay, go for it, right?
Yeah.
And we definitely, all of the examples of travel budgets, planning for kids, planning for a house. I think there was a member I spoke with not too long ago that really wanted to buy a donkey. And it doesn't matter for us, right? Whatever you want to do, we're here to make it happen. And we start with helping people understand that, money is a tool to live the life you want. So that all comes into effect. I think what's interesting and unique about this audience is that because they're so busy and they want everything now, the action on the advice and bringing in the ability to implement seamlessly into our service is really valuable.
Yeah.
And that was a huge part of why we did the partnership with Wealth, because when we say, hey, you need an estate plan, objectively speaking, we just want our member to get an estate plan. If they do it with Wealth, fantastic, because it's a great service. But what's most important to us is that they take action on that advice. The reason we work with Wealth is to make it really easy for them to literally tap a button and launch into that experience and have a seamless way to take action on that advice. And I think that is so valuable to this audience, that you don't just provide the advice, you take it one step further and make it really easy for them to get it done.
Kathy?
I think of this analogy. It's not a recipe book. It's literally Postmates. It's going to come to your door, right? You don't just want the recipe. You want the full. You want to eat something. You need the meal to arrive at your house. And what mentioning that ability for the client to easily and my understanding is that clients take only approximately 30 minutes to enter the information to create their estate plan on our platform. So it is actually that easy. It's amazing to me, who's someone who did it for 25 years, that they've been able to create this piece that can do it, this platform that can do it that quickly. Going back to the other topics that you had, though, in terms of what is important, one of the reasons that I changed my entire career and left being a practicing lawyer and came into this space and joined Wealth.com is because I have a 25-year-old, a 22-year-old, a 19-year-old, and a 17-year-old. So I am living this life right now and watching them change how they consume. They've changed.
Wow.
The way they consume is not how I consume.
What's an example?
Movies, okay? We try to get them to watch a movie with us. Movies are too long.
Uh-oh.
Okay? No, we could maybe binge a show, but we're not going to watch a movie. and also, Postmates is a great example. Any of those type of food delivery services, right? I think they actually think that is how food is made, But getting back to what's important to them, because that's what's important to me, is my 25-year-old has a retirement plan, and not because he wants to be rich, but because he wants to retire and play golf when he's 45. And so your ability to get to what's important to the next generation coming up, and you have to reset your brain. If you're not around them all the time, it might require a little bit of thinking and analysis, because they're not going to think the same way that you do.
So, we've talked a lot about speed and different ways of communicating and doing things more quickly. I thought this might be a good time to bring in AI. Has that entered either of your lives yet, especially when we're talking about dealing with a new generation of clients, and if so, how?
150% yes, for a while. I think what makes the facet model scalable is that we use technology in a very intentional way, which allows our CFPs to be that much more productive. in terms of how many members they can service at a certain quality level simultaneously and still provide that type of personalized advice. And in order to provide that type of efficiency in the fundamental business model, you're going to have to rely on not only technology, but also machine learning, AI, data science. And so we've been using a variety of homegrown AI that we've built that helps our planners to do a lot of things.
What's a use case? Tell us.
So we don't want our planners, for example, taking notes during a meeting.
Right.
We want them to just 100% focus on our members, build trust, build connection, help them to take action on advice, really the behavioral finance aspects of financial planning. And so we have a full AI solution for a note summary for every interaction with our members. And that gives them the advantage of providing a better experience. So of course there's an efficiency play, and we have multiple use cases on the back end that deliver this type of ability for our planners to be more efficient and in tune, but it's also about value generation, because that's creating a more valuable experience for those members by letting them fully focus on the interaction at hand, which makes the member feel like this person's really focusing on me and my needs, not taking notes, which distracts a bit from that connection point. So AI is, it's here, everybody talks about it. It's obviously the trendiest topic really anywhere these days. But I think for us, it's been around, and it's just part of how we do what we do.
And well, I'm so excited about it. It's kind of a game changer in my world. And here's a perfect use case. Imagine you have a new client come in. You're really excited about this client, and you want to show them how amazing of an advisor you are. And they say, you know what? I've got all of these estate planning documents from 15 years ago. I don't know what they mean. Let me just data dump this on you. And you can use, Wealth.com has a proprietary AI that will help read and summarize those trusts, put it together in executive summaries. You can build out reports. I truly just think this is unbelievable in how much time it will save the advisor. And now if you didn't have this tool, it would take hours and hours and hours, right? With this tool in 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how many documents they have.
So they could do it before the session, before their
yes,
planning session
right
ends.
before
Wow.
you have this, and you have a deliverable to the client. And this is AI.
Wow.
So AI is coming whether people like it or not. I mean, it's here, but it's going to start infiltrating so much of what we do. And so if you learn how to use it, you'll be able to build your business that much faster.
Great. We have a couple minutes left. Any questions from the audience that anybody would like to jump in?
What about the client that's going to tell you, I'm thinking about getting divorced from my wife, and then it sends out an email summarizing the meeting, and the wife reads that email?
That's why we have humans in the loop.
Human in the loop. We're not trying to cut them out.
Anybody?
For the trust, you're uploading all the trust documents. Does it also take into consideration all the amendments that may need to take place over the years as well?
Yes. So currently the AI is not reading that, but we're working towards training it. In fact, I'm one of the people that gets to train it to do that. And so I'm really excited about that future piece. You can see where it could get confused. So we need to make sure that it can do it right. And if you have an amendment or restatement, that's not an issue. Not to get too technical, but when you have just a single amendment, I can explain more why that's a little harder. More later why that's a little harder. Yes, happy to talk.
Anyone else? No? Oh.
With the goal of simplifying investing as a whole for investors specifically, do you use general proprietary portfolios, or do you pick investment models specifically for the person and their strategy that works for them specifically?
So we have portfolio models and a CIO that picks, and then they're all customized down to the individual. Yeah. It's an ETF-based strategy, but we're constantly expanding.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks for attending. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you guys tremendously. We appreciate it.